Good day, good night. Welcome back, CFR Network, CFR Sports. Special guest with me, keeping it local again. I have the Sunderland Strangler with me, Cal, Pacino, Ellenor,
All
bantamweight
right,
slash featherweight, former Bellator
mate.
8 and 3. Welcome to the broadcast. How are we doing, Cal?
I'm doing good, mate. How are you?
Good. We're fighting the good fight. We're still here. It's a little cold. I bet it's a lot colder up north, but we're getting to spring and stuff. Things are kind of we're kind of seeing the light through the trees. Let's say it that way.
Nice. It's freezing up here, like.
Yeah, and that snow. How did you cope with the snow and all that the last few weeks?
It's been all right, mate. To be honest, I mean, it's been because we live where I am. I'm right on the seafront, so I think with the salt water in the air, it hasn't laid too much around like my estate where I'm from, but everywhere else has been covered in it. Like, so I mean, we've used that to our advantage and took the kids out sledging and stuff. But
Definite.
aside from that, it's been sweet, man.
And as you say, for a children's standpoint, they don't really get an opportunity to experience like powder snow and stuff like from the 80s and stuff. So it's good for them to actually see it. Like, wow, this is the actual snow we see on films and stuff.
That's it. I mean, I would tell me that's the first time my son's seen it. He's nearly 2, you know what I mean? And it's the first time he's actually been in snow.
Wow. Experiences, that's what life's all about, is these experiences. So with that, Cal, I introduced you as a former Bellator fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's unpack that. Let's unpack that. Try and paint a vivid picture of, why are we now a free agent kind of thing?
My contract started a couple of years ago. When I had my last fight in South Africa, the Bellator offered us a multi-fight deal over 2 years. So I obviously signed the contract, fought Grayson, won that, and then continued fighting, had pullouts and stuff like that. And basically, by the time I then had my next fight, it was pretty much the end of the contract time, and then I had the fight there, and then with the coronavirus and stuff like that, or the zombie apocalypse, as you like to call it, the basically my time ran out, and then they were saying that the contract was on, basically they frozen the contract, with the lockdown and stuff like that, and then basically I was just contacting them, and then what they said was they came back and said, oh well, because my contract times ran out, that I'd be classed as a new signing. And they can't currently sign any new fighters at the moment, so it's not a renewal; it's actually a new contract I'll be getting. So they can't sign us at the moment. So I don't know what that means for the future, but I just took that opportunity to basically start and see what else is out there. I mean, obviously there's other massive organisations I can fight for. I mean, there's a guy from our gym who's heavyweight champion of KSW. That's a massive organisation. I'd love to get a fight out there for Code. Also, ONE FC in Japan and the Middle East. I think where's it? Is it Asia or I can't remember where?
It's
Singapore.
Singapore. Yeah, yeah. That was
Singapore.
excellent. Or even have you even thought about Brave as well? That's UAE.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I meant when I said Middle East. There, sorry, I got mixed up. Basically, Brave as well. I'm gonna get some emails sent and get my manager to speak to some people out there and see what people come back with. You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like I can be marketable and put on some good shows, regardless what organisation it is. And I feel like obviously moving up to featherweight is going to be a good call for us as well now with a fresh start. So I'm going to give 145 another crack.
100%, 100%. I mean, I'm surprised of sorts. Just going back to the signing thing, it's surprising because you're I wouldn't say, well, you're up and coming talent. You're not necessarily a brand name or a household name and stuff, but you're marketable, as you say. You've got that that quote unquote X factor. You've got the potential. Versus they've done some pretty big signings from the UFC. Yoel Romero, they've had Rumble. Those have been pretty recent. And also, what was the other guy who the 205er, Corey Anderson?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
they've definitely been signing new fighters. I can kind of understand it, but at the same time, I thought they were sort of concentrating on the, you know, the new, creating new stars, which that's what all companies really should be focusing on. Obviously, the existing and moving those youngsters through the ranks to become the next sort of star. So it's a little disappointing in that respect. And obviously, you wasn't a victim of the mass exodus of the prior, which is a good thing. And now, as you say, new horizons, reevaluate, reinvigor yourself. I mean, I've always been one which has questioned the weight cutting thing. I understand competitive advantage and stuff, but there comes a point where you shouldn't be cutting all that weight to get down to a certain weight class. There should be. Now, you may disagree with me, but this is something that, from a house perspective, from a performance perspective, I think there should be a limit. So if you're 69 kg, you shouldn't fight up or lower than maybe 15 pounds, 10 pounds, or something like that, or kgs, whatever. Just so you're not draining yourself, as you say, your fights, you could have had a lot more energy in those fights doing, and performing to a higher level.
Yeah, for sure. When I fought Nathan Grayson, I was 69 kilos the morning before the weigh-in. You know what I mean? That was the Thursday morning. I was 61.2 on the Friday morning. I did over a stone in the bath that night. You know what I mean? It was horrendous.
Yeah.
I remember that was like a stupid amount of weight to cut, and just like your Romero level of weight cut. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. And for someone at the time as well, I was a lot leaner. I was a lot like skinnier. I didn't have as much muscle mass as I've got now. I mean, I'm still not a big guy, but I mean, my shape's different to what it was. Then it was just literally taking water completely from my kidneys and my brain because I didn't have any muscle to take it from, and just killed myself. You know what I mean? Like literally just ran myself into the ground, and fortunately ended up getting the win there. And just every time, I think, to be honest, the last few, I've just thought, you know what, like it's coming to the point now where it's just like, why even try and fight at this more? Why didn't I just go back to like featherweight where I started my career and actually get me free and ready for this weight class and fight there and have a much more enjoyable camp, have much more energy the whole time. I mean, when I fight at bantamweight, my whole camp's miserable. I'm starving the whole time. I've got no energy, running myself into the ground, and I'm getting knocked all my rounds when I'm sparring, and just horrible. And I do it, and then I have the fight, and it's just like, it's the same. It's
Groundhog Day.
Like, now now at least I'll be able to have a bit of energy and not be able to not have to kill myself, not have I'm focused about losing weight when it should be about preparing for the fight and basically training, getting ready to use whatever game plan we're going to do. Whereas normally it's all just about losing weight and getting the weight off. So it's a nightmare. So definitely featherweight, it's a good call.
100%. As you say, you can put the true focus on, sharpening those skills, adding new tools to the tool belt, rather than, as you say, your focus being on, shit, I've got to cut all this weight. Oh, flip it, I'm hungry as well. All of those temptations that are around, these smells that you're thinking, you're like, oh my God, I've got to cut all this weight as well, and I'm smelling this. So it's good.
My girlfriend's got a cake business as well. I live with that at home as well, so it's like double trouble.
Well, I guess in a strange way of sorts, that builds a lot of I guess discipline. Being surrounded by those wonderful treats and stuff that your missus is cooking, and you're saying, oh, I'm committing. Don't make me an extra one or anything, or one for me to have. Look, just make them. I'm gonna continue training.
That's it. It's mental strength.
Exactly. So, as you've touched on the zombie apocalypse, let's rewind time a little bit. 2020 March. How has that year been for you?
It's been funny. It's been a strange one, to be honest. It's been mad, mate, to be honest. I mean, I haven't been complaining so much because I've been in a position where I've been able to spend loads more time than I normally would with my kids. But I'm not sure. It's just been a bit of a blur, really. I mean, I've tried to stay as committed as I have. I mean, I've trained. I ended up still end up having a fight in that whole time. All that madness was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just been strange. I mean, the gym hasn't been normal. You know, there hasn't been the same kind of people there. There hasn't been the same kind of output. It hasn't been the same vibe. It's just been weird. But as I say, just trying to get on with it, and then things have opened up, got a bit easier, and then they've just came back on top, and it's even worse now. I mean, we've had the police gym a number of times, the council's been out. It's just ridiculous. It's just mental.
It seems up north they're doing that a lot with gyms and spaces like that, where it's, you know, good for your physical health and mental health to be doing these kind of exercises. And it seems to be quite authoritarian, them just coming and, you know, especially as you said, you know, you're a professional fighter. This is your profession. So we're not talking about this is a leisure activity. This does form part of leisure, but this is your work. There should be a blatant sort of, okay, if you've got fighters at this place, no problem at all. That, you know, you can continue to open, but, you know, we'll make some you know, some spot checks maybe to make sure that no members of the public are coming in. Outside of that, do what you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've got the legislation there at the gym, and I mean, every time they've came, they've not been allowed in, and we've kind of just ignored them at the door and stuff like that, and had phone calls and stuff off them after. But it's just like
hassle.
It's just a ball, you know. It's just a bit of a hindrance to like everything else, because then obviously like the rest of the guys are not in. Like, there's only so many people who's in the gym. Some of the pros are still there, like the odd sessions here and there, but like for the most part, like all the other guys who's normally in there can't train. It's just a different kind of vibe. It's weird, like.
Have you done as some people have done and sort of revitalized your back garden space into some sort of
funnily enough, I did when the like obviously when the first when this whole thing kicked off in March or whenever it was, back in 2020, I got a pull-up bar put up in the back. I got a punch bag hung in the back garden, and I turned the rest into like a plant area where like grew me on carrots and
shit. That's good. That is. So what else did you grow? So we saying then, so carrots, what else did you put in some potatoes?
Carrots, potatoes, what else was there? There might have been, I think there was parsnips as well.
Spring onions?
No, there was no spring onions. No, there was parsnips, carrots, potatoes, and there was something else. I can't remember what else it was.
Okay. That's excellent.
It was pretty cool. It was cool.
And also, you know, for you know, a child's standpoint, seeing, you know, dad in the garden planting stuff, and then in a few months' time, dad pulling those things out, and then us eating it, you know, it's reintroducing children back to the, you know, to nature, to fresh food.
Sure, man. I've been going out fishing loads again as well, and I've been bringing home what I've been catching and cooking that as well. So that's been pretty sick. So that's the same kind of aspect what you've just been touching on there as well.
Perfect. Oh, you do the old fishing as well. So are you a carp man or what?
I do everything, man. I do. I enjoy a bit fishing there from time to time, definitely.
Aha, the relaxing sport of fishing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, it's when it's nice, when the weather's nice, summertime, it's excellent. I had a friend who was an avid fisher. Every weekend he would be out, or every other weekend towards the winter, and it was nice. It was a nice vibe. It was interesting. Because the first time I was out with him, I used to think, so, well, okay, well, when you actually eventually catch this fish, what on earth are you going to do with it? I was like, well, I'm going to weigh it and document it. That's it. Throw it back in. Oh, well. So you don't eat them?
I'll bring mine home and eat them. I cook mine like.
Well, think about it. I'm in Brum in it, so we haven't got access to much space like that. So I wouldn't advise anybody eating fish out of any of the lakes we got over here.
Aye.
That would be an interesting one. So
definitely.
So Cal, let's jump in the old DeLorean, as I like to do from time to time, and let's jump back before there was a Cal Pacino. You grew up in Sunderland.
Yeah.
So paint me a
Sunderland. I lived there my whole life.
paint the picture. Growing up, what was Cal into? What was he doing as a youngster?
Trouble. As a kid, most of the time, just trouble. As I say, like just a tearaway, really. To be honest, till I started boxing.
Was
Just
that
young and daft, really. I mean,
was that
we
down
didn't really.
to not having an avenue to channel your creativity, aggression, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I would get. Yeah, pretty much nail on the head, really. I mean, we didn't. Where we from up here, there wasn't really too much to do. I mean, we'd just be just young and daft. We'd end up in bother all the time. And then
Hmm.
I think it was 12-year-old when I first actually stepped into the boxing gym, and I started boxing for Sunderland ABC for years. You know what I mean? I boxed most of my life. Boxed all the way through till I was 18, and then that's when I started MMA from there. Really, and I mean, boxing was definitely what pulled it round for us, really. Because I mean, I think even some of the like kids I used to know about with when I was a kid, I see them now, and they're just on a completely different
Yeah,
path to the one I'm on. You know what I mean? And I'm glad, like, obviously, I seen like kind of a different kind of path for myself, and it's kind of changed the person I am as well. You know what I mean?
hmm,
Um, with morals and stuff like that. It just gets your head switched on from a young age.
100%. I mean, as you said, that young, malleable age of 12, you're still a human sponge at this point. And if you haven't
Mm-hmm.
got like some form of discipline, some structure, an outlet for physical creativity, or drawing art, production
Mm-hmm.
music, if you just need an outlet, someone to channel, create, couture some of that energy. If you're just left to be a wild flower, that's exactly what you'll start off being, a wildflower, and you end up becoming a wild weed.
For sure. I mean, there's plenty of that as well. There's plenty of weed involved in that whole mission as well.
I can imagine. I can imagine. As you say, being a youngster, you do some interesting and silly things, but it's some people at a young age, I don't know what was it for you that got you into boxing? What was that turning point? Did you proactively say, look, I want to try this, or
It was weird. I'd always, nobody in my family ever fought or done any kind of sport or anything. Like my immediate family, my cousins, my aunties, uncles, whatever. No one. But I always liked watching old fights. I used to have been a massive like boxer, fight fan in general. But when I was young, it was boxing. I used to love it. I used to always watch tapes of old fights all the time, and
Mhm.
I loved it. And I just studied it a bit, as a kid. Like, and that to me was like, because I was like just a young, like, nerdy kid. You know what I mean? I used to
Yeah.
think like fighting to me was like I just thought it was like like I just thought, like, I like to say these like men gone in and actually having fights just used to like blow my mind. I
Of
just used to like see
course.
the huge audiences and just think like it would be crazy to experience that. Like, it must take a certain kind of person. And I had like posters of Muhammad Ali up on my bedroom wall and stuff like
Mm,
that, and I loved it. And I got a punch bag. I still remember it. It was a T.Y. McGurk punch bag, and it was hanging from the beam. My room was in the loft at my mum and dad's house, and I had a big like a beam across the top, and the punch bag coming from there. And I remember I used to just train myself on there. And it was funny. One of my friends in school, he'd actually started training at Sunderland ABC, and he was my best friend from like my childhood, growing up the whole time. And he was saying like, "Oh, you should call down one time and come in with us,"
mhm.
And I was saying, "Oh, what's it like?" And I was saying, "Do you like do you punch each other?" And then I was like, "Is it a thing?" He's like, "Oh, spar every night." It's like it's mint. Like, we're actually like we get into it. You know what I mean? I was like, and I couldn't picture it in my head. And then I went down, got the most savage beating in my life the first night I was there. Like, I still remember like sitting in the change room after thinking like, there's no way I can ever come back to this place. Like, I literally got me. Like, I didn't even have a gum shield. Old Cliffy,
Oh
he's still kicking
shit.
about now, and he's like an old man. He's one of them who would like mid-round completely forget that he had a timer on, and you'd end up doing like 5-minute rounds, and it was
Yeah.
like just ridiculous. And I ended up getting chucked in there, and I got my head kicked in my first night off some kid who'd been there a while. And I remember like not wanting to go back, and then coming home and forcing myself to go back, and
Mm.
just fell in love with it and just started fighting for them straight away. Won national titles for them, and started to get good, fought some really good kids, and continued throughout my childhood really there till I was 18, and then that was when I ended up starting MMA and been fighting for TFT ever since.
And what was your first exposure to actually, from a consumer standpoint? What was the first MMA fight that you experienced?
The first MMA fight I experienced this was kind of the reason I started MMA. I used to watch it with my dad because he used to work shifts, and certain times he'd come back, would catch like random bits of fights that was on. I remember my dad used to really like Chuck Liddell, and he used to like Orlovsky.
Yes.
When Orlovsky, like back in the D Orlovsky, you know,
Yeah.
I used to
The
watch
TRT steroid times.
And I used to watch them with him, and I just thought it was mad, and I just thought it's crazy. But at the time, it was such a young sport, and I didn't know anyone who trained in any aspect of that. Boxing was the only kind of fighting thing that we knew around my way. And then when I was 18, I'd actually stopped boxing for the gym I was fighting for at the time. And I was just keeping fit in a local gym. Tony Jeffries' dad's gym in Sunderland, and just keeping fit. And then Andrew Fisher was renting a little cupboard. It was like a little cupboard, honestly. It was a little storage cupboard in the back room, and he had some mats in there, and had a couple of guys in there, and they were doing jiu-jitsu, and I was watching it, and I was like, you know what, like I would love to try it. And I ended up just going to one of the sessions, and from being open class boxing and fighting anyone, fighting in junior years and boxing out all these kids who've been about forever, and then to come and to jiu-jitsu and not knowing a single thing was just like, I think it's with some people it breaks them, and for me I feel like it made us. And I feel like that was like, well, I know nothing here, and I need to like submerge myself into it, and I really want to like learn as much as I can. So I just started training from then on straight away with TFT. And then Fisher was like, oh, would you want to fight? Would you ever want to fight MMA for us? And back then it was still when, I don't know if you remember the old semi-pro rules, when it was like amateur, semi-pro and pro. And it's like, well, you will adapt your style, your kind of striking style, to what's going to work for MMA. You know, we'll close your stance off a bit, we'll shorten your stance, we'll kind of get you good at defending takedowns, get you scrambling and stuff like that, and anti-grappling. And it went from there. And then I just completely fell in love with it. And even like when it's all said and done, if I was never going to fight again or whatever, like later on or whatever, I'll always still be like an avid MMA supporter. I mean, I watch countless amounts of footage, and I study it, and I just love it. You know what I mean? It's just a massive part of my life, and been just really lucky that I've kind of ended up involved in it, you know, and landed in a decent gym where there's been, I mean, I was the first person to fight professionally from that gym. You know, when we first started, there was only a couple of guys there, and then there was only a couple of us who was actually fighting, and then I was the first guy to fight pro from there. And now we've got people signed all different kind of organizations. You know, we've got people who's champions in organizations. We're all fighting internationally and stuff like that. And it's been a good ride, you know what I mean, to see where we've come from to where we are now. It's pretty it's exciting, you know what I mean. I mean, for most people outsiders looking in, they probably think it's now and it's bollocks, but for us, we know where we've been, and we used to train in the cupboard.
Talk a little bit more about that. The from training in that little sort of cupboard style sort of room doing your jiu-jitsu. I mean, how big has the gym got to now?
It's massive. It's literally it's really big now compared to like back then. Honestly, like when people think, when I say it to people like we're training a couple of people, like think I'm exaggerating, but honestly, like this room was tiny, and it went from being like a couple of us there to being like really busy to the point where you couldn't even run around and nothing like that. And it was just like we ended up having to like move the mats outside when the boxing gym had shut for their session finishing. We'd sneak the mats out and train on the mats outside of the room, and then we ended up changing venue and then changed again, and then been a few different places to where we are now. And then now Fisher's got a massive unit in CM now, and it's like a huge, like it's like a warehouse thing. It's massive, and it's got cages in, and it's good, you know what I mean? It's to see where we are. As I was saying earlier, like to see the evolution, if you will, of what we were to where we are now. I mean, like I've just main evented a massive show, one of the biggest shows in the world, you know what I mean? And then Phil's KSW heavyweight champion. He's ranked in the top 50, top whatever in the world in the international world rankings, you know what I mean? And then you've got like other guys, Cage Warriors. Phil's fought in the UFC. He's been all over the place. We've had guys fighting like ACB, stuff like that. It's cool to see where we're headed. You know what I mean?
You got a massive stable. You got a massive stable of potential contenders, champions, and everything in between. It would sound like.
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely. I mean, and all we are really it's just a hard working gym. I know we've not had any like kind of help up like a lot of the other guys have. We haven't got these crazy sponsors who's paying us and giving us these fights that's gonna like winnable fights that we're gonna win and going to look fantastic. We always get the shit end of the stick. You know what I mean? We have to take the hard fights to try and to get us up there. And we're always in the and we'll just take chances and we'll just work hard and that's why. So obviously sometimes it doesn't pay off, like the last one I lost, I thought I was going to smash that and I lost, but it's one of them things you just take chances and it gets you to where we're headed, you know what I mean? And it's just evolution. That's all
Cal,
it is.
as you know, anything can happen in MMA.
Game of chess, mate. That's
This
exactly
is it, man. I
For
mean,
sure, man.
You was in my opinion, you was from a fighter standpoint, a consumer standpoint, you were the favorite, in my opinion, going into that. Yeah. That
Mate,
last fight.
it is. That's one of them things. I still think that's a fight that a winnable fight for me, and just it's one of them things. It's a game of chess, mate. Like if you look at me fight with Grayson, look at the shoeing I took there, and I ended up winning that one. You know what I mean? It's just, mate, it's a fight, and the amount of people who give a stick about it, it's like, mate, man, like you get in there, and especially when you're fighting at a good level as well. You're not just fighting the average Joe on your doorstep. You're fighting good kids. One mistake can cost you a fight, man. You know what I mean? And it's one of them things. That's why it doesn't bother us at all. It's like, look at anyone who's anyone in MMA, bar Khabib, you're all gonna have these little bumps on the road. You know what I mean? It's like, look at Dustin Poirier, got knocked out of Michael Johnson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a dangerous game, and you've got to take risks. And if you don't take risks, you're not going to get where you want to be.
And it's funny you say that. I mean, Johnson took Poirier, and didn't he defeat the legend Al Kakui, Tony Ferguson, as well?
He did. He did. He Tony. He knocked Dustin out. He nearly had Gaethje out. He wobbled Khabib. He's a world beat. I just feel like when he's fighting these top guys, his level seems higher than he fights like a fight like last night, Clay Guida, in a fight. I had Johnson on to win that. He actually knocked me accumulator. I had Johnson on to win that by knockout. I thought he was, because he's got that fast twitch, you know what I mean? And he flows from silly angles, and he's really, really fast twitch. And Guida is open to be hit. He's wild and he's cagey and he's super fit and he's a grinder. But I just think he gets hit a lot, and I thought Johnson would catch him on the way in and knock him. But it's MMA, you know what I mean? It was one of them things. It goes that way.
You raise an excellent point, though. You do, because I was thinking myself yesterday. I was like, my God, Clay is looking like excellent tonight. But as you've highlighted, it's when Johnson is up against the top tier, you really see him shine. When it goes down, I mean, and I'm no disrespect to Clay Guida, but he's not necessarily top tier anymore. He's still an excellent fighter, and he can beat a lot of people. But it's like, I think it's psychologically. Sort of Michael thinks, I can't beat this guy.
Takes this. Yeah, well, I think Clay Guida is kind of the same as well. Like if you look at when he fought Brian Ortega, although he lost that fight. Did he get knocked out or did he get dropped in guillotine? I can't remember. But he definitely he smashed Brian Ortega, like literally leathered him the whole fight until he got finished. Like literally, and it's the same thing. Like it went the same as when he fought Pettis. Absolutely schooled Pettis, you know what I mean? And then he fights Jim Miller, someone like that, or whoever, I can't remember who's beat him as of late, you know what I mean? Who's beat Guida, who's been like a
Miller? It was Miller, wasn't it?
Miller wasn't it? Did Miller drop him and then guillotine him? Or
guillotined him. Yeah. No, that was it.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember.
No, I'm sure it was because he got the win in it, because it was like two veterans going up against each other and they were looking good and they was throwing hard at the start of that round.
There were. It was a sick fight. I'm sure. It might have been the other way around. Jim Miller might, but you know what I mean. It's the same kind of thing. I feel like them kind of they turn it on when they need to turn it on against the good guys and they really shine, and then the guys that they arguably it's like a good winnable fight for them. They kind of let it slip a bit, and I feel like that's been Michael Johnson's career his whole life. I mean, I seriously rate him. I think he can be a nightmare matchup for anyone, but then he loses the other fights that's like kind of like good fights for him, you know, like Stevie Ray was a good fight with him. I think I rate Stevie Ray a lot, and I just think like they're kind of similar kind of stamp guys, you know. And and I feel like he just on them kind of nights he just doesn't do it.
I mean, what do you think's next? I mean, is this like 4 fights now? Isn't it a 4 fight skid?
Mm-hmm.
You reckon Uncle Dana will say, you know, bye?
I don't know. It's one of them things. It just depends, like, because if there's any justice in the world, and sometimes in this sport there's not, but I feel like he still can like fight someone great next to him, win. So it's like he deserves to be there. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at a record point and he's like last 4, he's lost off the belt, but it's like in that same breath, you could put him in with anyone. Like, say, you could put him back in with Dustin, or you could put him in with Tony, and you've got, you know, for a fact, he's got a good chance he could knock him out. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know, man, but it just depends on what they think. If they think he's marketable and he does good numbers or what, I mean, it all comes down to business at the end of the day, and whatever they think. I mean, I think if not, I think in the UFC there's good fights for him, and I feel like if he leaves the UFC, I feel like there's great fights from elsewhere as well. So as long as he gets paid, I think he's done enough in the sport to be able to get what he earned. You know what I mean? He should be paid. You know, he's a world class operator, and he's put his life into it. So wherever he goes, I hope he gets looked after.
100%. And I think just horsebacking off the latter part of your statement, I think it would be good for him if he's in this position to test free market, or if he's let go to seek a one championship, a Bellator potentially, or maybe even do a run with the PFL. I mean, I know financially they're having issues at the moment, and they've let go a few staff and fighters, etc. But there are so much opportunities. I mean, $1 million for, was it 3 fights or 4 fights that these guys have to do in the PFL?
I think it might be 3. Wait there. So is it an 8-man bracket? I can't remember. So
8-man bracket, yes.
I saw that'll be 3, won't it?
Yeah.
I think it's 3. I think it works out 3 fights.
You ain't doing that unless you're Connor, Jones, Diaz, Masvidal. You know, if you're one of those big tier names. And even that, $1 million, Connor will get that. Jones, potentially. I don't think many other people. They'll get like the 500,000, 600,000 stuff.
I know. Well, mate, it's funny because the release what they actually say they get, but it's always way more. I mean, I think Jones has been getting over $1 million for his last, like, God knows how many fights. You know what I mean? And it always in the post fight thing when they share what they've been paid, it always looks like they're not getting like half as much as what you think they would, but it always turns out like behind the thing that they're getting loads more. Like, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's more of them in the UFC getting paid upwards of that. You know, I know DC's like he's been getting paid fortunes. You know, I think was it a few fights back he got his first $1 million. I remember listening to him talking about it. You know, so it's I definitely think there's opportunities there. You know what I mean? It's just obviously you've just got to be marketable enough to be pushed that way. You know what I mean? And obviously fights come into it as well, and I feel like obviously like you've got to earn that as well. But even still, I mean, I think like there's some fighters who get like looked after a lot and pushed a lot and helped out in that way.
Oh, it's quite blatant at times. I mean, if you have, I mean, I think hats off to this guy. I think some of his past is a bit shady, but everyone's past can have a little bit of mock and mire in it. But that Ali Abdelaziz, dominance MMA. I think he's doing some excellent work in regard to looking after his fighters. I think there's a conflict of interest, I think, personally, with some of the, I mean, the next fight coming up, Usman and Burns, that's a game managed by Ali again, isn't it?
Aye. So, that's it. It definitely seems like a conflict of interest, doesn't it? But I don't know. It's a funny one. But as you see, like everyone outside of his management seems to have an opinion of him. But then everyone who's managed by him says like it sounds like he's the be all and end all. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know personally. I mean, I know fighters who's under his management, you know. So maybe speak to them. But it does seem like he's doing good things for them. I mean, I remember was it Justin Gaethje who fought and he didn't want any of his purse and stuff like that, and I can't remember what fight it was, but basically he just the way he worded it, it made it sound like he was, you know, he seemed like a genuine, like someone who genuinely cared. Whereas a lot of the as brutal as it is, I mean, I know it's business, but for the most part, I know there's a lot of managers who genuinely don't really give a rat's ass about the fighters, you know, and it's just a business thing for them. So maybe he is a good manager, maybe he is a good guy if you know him personally, you know. I mean, obviously there is shady stuff about his past what's been brought to light before, but everyone's got their own shit, you know what I mean? So
exactly. And ultimately, as his athletes, his fighters, they're getting in the positions, they're getting titles, they're getting title opportunities, they're getting the money which they deserve. So, you know, I think, and I'm pretty sure you would agree, all fighters need to be having these, you know, a higher level of pay in comparison to the promotions making ridiculous money. And we know it's business and we know it's capitalism, but without the talent, there is no business.
Exactly. That's it. I feel like that definitely is a massive factor, and I feel like it is changing more and more. You know, you're getting the I mean, obviously the McGregor wave, when that all happened, that changed a lot of things for fighters, but it should be that way, you know. Like why is it that people fight and to a lot of managers and to a lot of organization, it's like fighters are just like cattle, you know what I mean? They just get used and then just flung under the bus when they're done, you know what I mean? And it's like it shouldn't be that way. Like they're the ones who, like, look, other sports people get paid fortunes for doing nothing. When fighting, you're putting your life on the line, you know, you're putting your health on the line, you're putting time away from family and stuff like that. So why shouldn't they be looked after? You know what I mean? It's one of the most savage sports there is, in my opinion. And from doing it myself, I know personally what I go through every time I have a fight, and it's not for the faint-hearted. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. You know, it's an amazing, beautiful experience having a fight, but at the same time, it's horrible, and there is a lot of mental battles and anxieties and emotions that go into it. And why shouldn't people be paid? You know what I mean? That's the way it should be. And I'm glad times are changing and fighters are starting to get more looked after, and it's more light shined on the fighters, and more people are coming on sponsor wise and stuff like that. And it's evolution, you know what I mean? The more things that happen like that, the more time you're going to get kids coming through, getting better opportunities to train, getting more even playing field. You know, you get a lot of these guys who come from these super camps where they're getting sponsors flung at them left, right, and centre, so they're not having to work when other people are trying to go pro early on. They're still working full-time jobs and trying to do what they can. And for the most part, now it's just becoming a lot more of a level playing field. You know, more opportunities are happening for the average Joes, and it's going to progress the sport into another, propel it to another level. You know what I mean?
Well, in my humble opinion, I would say, especially within the zombie apocalypse era, combat sports has been the number one thing. It was the only game in town, especially obviously when Uncle Dana, quote unquote, you know, was putting these events on. That was the only sporting events that was available. One championship did something early on as well, I think. Bellator might as I think Cage Warriors as well. Later on, but outside of that, then we had a few boxing matches, and I don't know what your opinion is on today's state of boxing, but it's just so corrupt, man. There's so much good fights out there, and they're not happening.
That should be made. And you know what? I feel like for the most part, I feel like the lighter weight guys are showing the world how to get it done. You know what I mean? Like you're seeing Teofimo Lopez. Sorry for the pronunciation issues there. I can't pronounce his first name, but Lopez fighting Loma. Great fight. Linares has fought Lomachenko, Luke Campbell. You're getting the likes of Errol Spence fighting tough guys. Crawford fighting Kell Brook. You know, all the smaller weight guys. You know, Tank.
Tank Evans,
all the smaller guys seem to be actually at a point now where they're putting it on the line and they actually having the fights that should be made. You know, you getting these guys, and it's like this guy's the best up and coming thing, but he's in this weight division, but they don't fight each other. It's like, well, why? And the smaller weight guys seem to be doing that now. I mean, why the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight hasn't been made already before now is ridiculous. You know what I mean? I'm glad to see that it seems to be coming to light, but just seems like it's all just money and politics, and it's just so corrupt. It spoils it. You know what I mean?
It really doesn't. From a consumer's standpoint, from the fans who want to see this, and that's how people get paid, is by the fans tuning in. They're screaming for it. Give us
Yeah.
it. We will pay the 19.95 if we're in the UK, or the 24, or the 29 potentially. Obviously in the US it would be like $80 or something like crazy, something like that. You know, they'll
Fortunately.
pay it. Just put the event on. I mean, boxers, and from your experience, the length that you need to prepare for a fight isn't as long as you'd need for an MMA fight, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's so much less taxing on the body as well. Like, don't get us wrong, obviously they spar a lot, so you get, obviously there's damage and wear and tear there, but it's a different kind of preparation. You know, when you're preparing for an MMA fight, there's so many little niggly injuries all the time. You know, you're grappling, you're getting put in awkward positions, your ribs get injured all the time, your shoulders, your stupid little things, your fingers get caught, and you know, there's always little niggly injuries. Like I don't think there's been a fight where I've gone in actually felt normal. You know what I mean? There's always something. You just get on with it, but that's like obviously so much worse prep like on your body. You know what I mean? Like for a boxing fight, you can churn them out every few weeks essentially. You know what I mean? Like Thai fights are often Thai boxers fight, and
Yeah.
that's simply because they're literally the way they train. They're sparring all the time, training all the time, but their sparring. I mean, don't get us wrong. Not every person spars like that, but for the most part, Thai sparring's a lot more controlled. You know what I mean? And then that's the reason they're fighting so often. And
Mhm.
MMA, you know, you look if you get to, especially when you're in a high, like a top end organization, you get look if you get 2 a year. You know what I mean?
This is it. And you know, the great Rotang
Mm-hmm.
kickboxer. I mean, he's got 300 wins,
Yeah,
and what, 300 wins and maybe what, 13 defeats, 18 defeats. Like, this is
savage.
when I was hearing these numbers, when I first started tuning into one, and I was hearing some of these records of some of these Muay Thai fighters and kickboxers, I was like, what on earth? When did they start fighting?
Hi, that's it. Like the fight from a young age and the fighting every other weekend. You know what I mean?
This is it. This is it. I
Mhm.
mean, trustfully, I mean, your management is going to be sending these emails across. And when would you, if you could wave a magic wand,
Mhm.
where would you like to be, and when would you like to fight?
Say there's a number of different factors for different organizations why I'd like to be in different ones, you know.
Yeah, of
um,
course.
but as long as I'm getting looked after, I'm not really asked where it is. But for me, time wise,
Hmm.
I mean, if I would fight in, obviously I'm going up with featherweight. I mean, I'm heavier than most featherweights are at the moment anyway. But I want to try and get my body ready for that. I feel like that's why I've always struggled. That's why the reason I've never really I had my first couple of fights at featherweight and then moved down to bantam. But I feel like I just want to get my frame ready first. I want to put a little bit of muscle on and then trim down and be a
Hmm.
bigger frame. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm tall enough for it. You know what I mean? I'm 6 foot on the dot, but I'm I feel like frame wise, that's why I've always struggled. You know, striking range and stuff like that. I feel like a featherweight and fight all day, but I always struggled if I was having these featherweights on top of us, you know, for third round and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like the pressure and stuff like that was when I would energy level and lactic acid would build up a lot, and I feel like that's where I would struggle. But now I feel like with this being bigger and trying to, I'm doing a lot more strength training, putting a bit of size on. I feel like just give myself a little bit of time to get my frame ready, and I'll be good to go. You know what I mean? I want to get back in the gym fully, get a full routine. You know, obviously back in the grappling gym, I train at North East Jiu Jitsu full time, back with TFT full time, and get a routine back, and then get myself ready and then start a camp. Now, I'm not just jumping in like I did last time when I wasn't
Yeah.
even in the gym and then they say, oh, we've got a fight for you in 6 weeks. And I jump back into the gym and it's not 100 and my body's
Mm,
ruined and I'm just shit. I want to be fit and then do a camp when I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? Have me weight at a good position, go from there. So I'd say June. If I could wave a magic wand, as you put it, I would say June. And I feel like that was where I feel like I'd be optimal and I'd be ready for a good chance and a good scrap at featherweight, definitely. In any of the, as you see, Brave, One, KSW, wherever's willing to take us and wherever's would consider us being a good asset to them and would look after us, I'll be happy to go there. You know what I mean?
100%. Much success and trustfully you will land that financial compensation, which all fighters are due. And ultimately, you start turning some heads in get that light shining on you.
That's it. And I feel like every time I fight, no matter what way it goes, I always feel like I just didn't, no matter what, even still haven't shown people what I can do. And you know what I mean? I need to get in there and put it all together. And I feel like I will be able to get the heads turned. You know what I mean? I know fully in myself. I know the ability I've got. It's just doing it on the night, and I just need to just get in and just put it all together. And I believe I will make waves. So
yes,
stay tuned.
100%. Hey, let's talk as we wind the conversation down.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about the fight itself. So nerves and all that. I mean, do you get nervous fighting in essentially your underwear in front of thousands of people, knowing that this is also being recorded and beamed out across the whole world, Cal?
Yeah, mate, that's a massive part of it. I mean, when it's different nerves now, when I was younger, I mean, I had my first fight at 12-year-old, I still remember, and I was terrified. Like, I remember thinking just questioning myself, why have I put myself in this position? Like, all my mates are out now, probably at home playing footy, doing whatever, and I'm in this packed out place, still smoking in the venues the way, and I'm fighting this kid who looked absolutely terrifying. And I was just like, what have I done this to myself for? I just remember feeling like I wish my dad could just take us outside now and take us home. And that's honestly the way I felt. I was terrified. And then as soon as I walked out, that was gone. I was fine. And honestly, people say it gets easier, but for me personally, it gets worse every fight. Like, I feel like now I feel like I've always been all right handling the nerves. I mean, one of my mates who I used to fight with, he used to spew before his fights horrendously. He even got stopped one time because he spewed before the fight, got in, first round started, and he spewed mid round, and he got the TKO'd him for it. And he was one of them who always struggled. Whereas I feel like I've always handled it well, but it's more so the pressure now, because I know the standard I want to portray when I fight. I know what I can do, and everyone around us who's trained with us and who's put time into helping us and backed us and just pushed us to where I am. I always feel like I want to do them justice and show them that
Yeah.
I'm that it's not being wasted, because I know how good I can be. And then that's what I get nervous about. Like, I'm not asked about getting hurt. I'm not asked about getting knocked out. I'm not asked about getting submitted. I'm not about getting embarrassed. Anything like that, I'm not bothered, because it's just fighting, and it happens. And sometimes you look amazing and sometimes you look shit, and it's just the way it goes. Sometimes you feel amazing and the fight's bad. Sometimes you feel shit and you fight mint. It's this crazy game. And on the night, sometimes it just doesn't happen for you. And that the main thing that I struggle with is just that the nerves have just gone in there and doing what I can do, and that's all I get bothered about. But anything else doesn't really bother us too much.
Living up to
My expectations, yeah.
your expectations of other people's supposed expectations, in essence.
I mean, obviously, the amount of shit I got after my last fight, it just opened my eyes to realize how many sour people there are out there and how many negative people there are. I'm not, and to be honest, I've always been even at home, there's always been a lot of people who are kind of butters, and there's been a lot of people who's kind of had a little thing against us, and I'm not really asked about what people think of us. I've always just been my own person. I'm a bit mad, and I know I'm kind of quirky and a bit kooky in my own way, and people either get on with us, or people I kind of have something against us. But I feel like I'm not really asked about that. It's just the fight itself. I put myself on a pedestal in my own mind, and I know how good I can be, and that's what gets to me, because it's just I want to get in there and
prove it
and show what I can do, because I know that if I can do that on the night, then people will talk about it, and it will progress my career. You know what I mean? It's just got to get in there and do it.
Sometimes, I mean, I hear a lot of fighters are saying just they get caught up in that kind of emotion, thinking about, look, everyone in the gym knows that I'm a good grappler. They know I can submit people. They know my striking's good. But for some reason, I've lost this last fight. I want to make it, and they're overthinking things rather than just flowing, getting in that flow state and just doing it, and then finishing the fight, win, draw, lose, or whatever, and then looking back and thinking, that's how I need to fight. That's the mindset I need, because as you're highlighting, it's all mental, especially when it comes down to fighting. The physicalities, there's muscle memory, etc. You can drill certain, combinations, etc. But if it's not all up there, if it's not
That's it.
ticking through right, it's not gonna translate to the physical, is it?
For sure, mate. That's exactly it. I mean, mate, there's probably something in like people getting mental coaching and stuff like that. Probably a lot of that comes into it, but I've just always done my own shit, I feel like
Hmm.
I've always just been setting my ways, and I feel like maybe there is something to that, who knows? But yeah, I agree with what you're saying about the flow state and just getting in and just letting it happen. I mean, it's kind of, and I suppose it's subjective to the fight as well, because like when you're fighting certain kind of fights, you kind of don't really get too drawn into certain things. Whereas like my last one, there's so much build up about the back and forth arguing
Yeah.
online and stuff like that. You kind of get sucked into it a bit, and you kind of like that kind of clouds your judgment a bit as well, and you go in and you have a certain kind of mindset, and you kind of, it becomes different, I mean, I remember listening to Justin Poirier talking about it the first time he fought McGregor and feeling like everyone was against him and stuff like that, and then like the last one, like saying about how he wasn't kind of feeding into all that, and I thought like he kind of rationalized it all pretty well,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Paid in full, Cal.
I love it.
I
I
mean,
was
listen,
fucking buzzing.
Justin, I mean, Dustin even, he's the champ. He is
He
the
is. He is.
champ right now. I mean, listen,
Mm-hmm.
forever being an Al Kakui supporter, Tony is the
Mm-hmm.
people's champ forever. He hasn't
Mm-hmm.
been dethroned. I mean, he's lost those fights. He hasn't looked the best the last few fights, but he was stripped after doing media. Look, man, Cal,
Aye.
he was doing
Mate,
media stuff, to promote the fight.
that's exactly what I mean. It's like one of them things, you either looked after and you get your fucking hoop tongued, or you're one of these guys that gets shit on. And unfortunately, Tony, for his quirkiness and his weirdness and his whatever it is, I don't know if it's just the way he is with them and he just doesn't take any shit off them or what, but they've just fucked him over big time. You know what I mean? There's been what was it, 9 fights off the belt he won, and
Yeah.
had the interim belt, and they stripped him for 2 seconds. How long was it that Conor McGregor was inactive for? 2 years?
2
When he had
years.
both belts, was it something like that? It was
Yeah.
ridiculous, you know what I mean? And Tony's 2 minutes, you know what I mean? And then to strip him, it's like, I feel like they've got to be a bit more like transparent, you know what I mean? I feel like it's business, so they don't really give a fuck, you know what I mean? But in my eyes, if there's any justice, that's the way it should be. It should be one rule for all, you know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, just look at how the dimension of the 55 division would have played out if they didn't strip him, and then that fifth fight would have actually taken place, and we would have seen, at Tony's peak and Khabib at his peak, what would have happened? Because that's the question that everyone still has. I still have it. I mean, as I say, he hasn't looked good, Tony, but
I know. It's one of them things. Because if you put Khabib in against him the way he looked against Charles, then you just think Tony's getting absolutely mauled. But then a couple of fights back, when he's killing everyone, you don't know, because I was thinking he's definitely going to be able to take Tony down. But Tony scrambles nice. He's got lovely Granbury rolls and stuff like that. And elbows off his back, he cuts everyone to death, So who knows? Maybe he could have cut him up off his back or something and threatened with some submissions. I don't know, but I feel like after looking at them last two, I think it would have been a big night, a bad night for Tony. You know what I mean? And I'm a massive fan, but maybe it's a bit of maybe it's a good thing it didn't happen. I don't know.
Potentially. I mean, and also what we've got to think of his age as well. Tony's not the youngest. He's coming up to like 40 now. I think career-wise for Tony, unless the UFC are going to work with him a little bit more, I think he should jump up, because didn't he win the Ultimate Fighter at 170?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
He's got the the frame.
He has, yeah, definitely big lurchy kind of guy. Big wide shoulders, big like lean fella. I think obviously it's going to be like the same trilogy where either Poirier or Diaz, but why not match him with McGregor? You know what I mean? They're both coming off losses. 2 losses Tony's on now. Connor's on 2 losses. Well, he had Cowboy. He had the Cowboy fight, obviously, so it's 1 loss. But before that, he lost to Khabib. So it's relatively the same kind of outlook. Why not put them two together? You know, I feel like that would be a fun one. It'll never happen, but if it was a fantasy matchup, that's the fight I'd do for sure.
Well, Cal, as you know, we are playing fantasy matchmaker of sorts at the moment, you know, but that makes perfect sense if we look at the backstory, they were both on the same management team, and there was some kind of thing in regards to how that all played out and why he left them. He's always been calling out McNugget, quote unquote.
Exactly.
You know, so that we've got a history there. So, and at the moment, if we look at the storyline and how they want Connor to still be their golden boy, why not put him up against Tony now? He's had two losses.
Exactly. Put him against Tony, put Gaethje against Chandler, and put Dustin against Charles for the belt. Put Nate Diaz against Ali Quintus, someone like that. Why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There you go. There's your matchup there.
Totally. Oh, and even do it in the form of, and this is something I credit Bellator for, is the tournaments.
Unreal. I love it. Old Pride style, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, why not?
Do it.
That's what people get into it, you know what I mean? Invested in it. I love that shit, mate. Like when I was thinking, like when they first said about doing another one, it was like the bantamweight one seemed like the best division to do it in. There's so many good guys and like so many style differences like that. It could have been special, you know what I mean? Maybe it will happen down the line. Maybe they will go and do a bantamweight one. I feel like that's a super fun one. You get some of the guys from featherweight dropping into it as well. It could be cool, like.
Definitely, and the skill and speed. That's the thing. I don't know why when the UFC kept on saying, like the commentators, yeah, it's fun to see these little guys just running around the cage and stuff, and getting these lighter weights involved. But that's the technique. That's where we see the technique. That's where we see the scrambles. Some people are quite strike heavy and stuff, which is cool. Don't get it, don't get it twisted. But there's nothing wrong with seeing a good scramble, a grapple, a jiu-jitsu.
That's what people. If you're if you're a fan of in the different aspects of MMA, then the little guys are always going to be the best fights. Like that's why, in my opinion, Demetrius Johnson's the GOAT. You know what I mean? I feel like there's other people in the mix, but I feel like for me personally, I know people always see the level of people he fought and this, that, and the other, but for me, he's the GOAT, to do what he does and put it all together, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking, and not just that, but changing every time to adapt to who he's fighting. Anytime DJ's fought someone the first time and I had a struggle with him, the next time he's fought, I just feel like obviously that's what, like personally for me, why he was the GOAT, why he is the GOAT. Just his fight IQ and the way he can just change to adapt to whatever he's fighting. Like as I said about him, if he fights someone twice, like the first time the fight, like when he fought Ian McCall, the first time was a close fight, and then the second time was he just tortured him. Same with Dodson. You know what I mean? Prime examples, just completely changed the way, the approach. And just killed it, you know what I mean? I feel like he's the GOAT for sure.
And he finishes. He can finish people. In
sure.
one. Do you see the size of the belt that he won for the tournament? That was almost as big as him.
It was amazing, like.
And he had some tough, stiff competition. Everyone, and I don't understand why people don't watch one championship as much as they. They watch UFC and Bellator, for instance, and even LFA and all the rest of the stuff. They seem to just like kind of forget about one championship and how stacked their roster is. They've got some really good fighters, man.
Mate, some of the best fighters in the world are fighting for one at the minute. It's ridiculous. Like, as you say, it's one of them things. It's like the kind of people just get sucked into the mainstream thing, and they think the UFC is the be all and end all. And it's like, if you take the time to actually like look at the sport, and actually like study it a bit, you can see like, just because people's in the UFC doesn't mean they're the best fighters in the world. Like, don't get us wrong, a lot of the best fighters in the world are under the UFC, but that's not saying that Bellator hasn't got some of the best fighters in the world. One, Rising, the KSW, there's some amazing fighters. Look at Roberto Soldic, man. He in KSW, he's an absolute savage. You put him against he could be a nightmare for anyone. You know, Douglas Lima in Bellator, like he could beat any of the welterweights on the planet. You know, it's like there's some amazing fighters from different organizations for sure, man. And if you just take the time to watch and spend a night watching one of their shows, you can see the level, especially like the low weights as well.
Mhm.
One FC's got some incredible talent.
Definitely guaranteed. What we need is a Elon Musk to take an interest in combat sports and say, "Hey Dana, Scott Coker, I would like to do an Olympic style event with all of the promotions fighting each other, and I'll pay as much money as you want." That's what we need.
That's what we need, definitely. Like fight a worldwide Grand Prix, all weight divisions.
All weight divisions, you know, we'll do over a week period and we'll just go division by division, just banging it out. No titles from the organization's point of view online. A brand new title is created for the event. And let's see it, man. Let's put your money where your mouth is, and let's see how many pluses and minuses go against the UFC Bellator 1 Championship and stuff. It'll be fun as hell, that would be.
It'll be unreal. It would be amazing if I was one of these guys, as you say, like Elon Musk, and had that kind of stupid wedge. It could be worth doing, you know what I mean? Because the amount of interest it would get would just be ridiculous, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Maybe I should call up Uncle Dana and tell him, look, you know, you're plugged in with Donald Trump and all that. You plugged in with Elon Musk as well. Great. Listen, Cal, it's been very much enjoyable conversation today. How can people get hold of you? Please advise of all of your social media, website, and all that good stuff.
Cal Pacino MMA on Instagram and Twitter. Cal Pacino on Facebook. And aside from that, it's just on my YouTube channel as well, Cal Pacino MMA, and my fights and all my other shite that I put on is on that. I've got a podcast coming soon as well, so that'll be gone soon. So.
What is that going to be on all major platforms and stuff as well, and on the YouTube?
I'm going to give it a blast, mate. I am going to start my own little thing. It's not just going to be about fighting though, mate. It's just going to be about lifestyle in general. I'm just going to get some. I know loads of random weird dudes from all over the place who I've met from me many travels and stuff like that. So I'm just going to get people on and just have a big crack, you know what I mean, and just talk about current affairs and stuff.
Life in general. This is what we need. You know, obviously there's a plethora of MMA combat sports podcasts. I mean, obviously, yeah, mix it up where appropriate, but life is a big ball of lots of different things, and if you want to do that, I think that'll be you've definitely got a subscriber here, Cal.
Oh, thank you, mate. I appreciate that a lot, brother. Thank you.
No problem at all, sir. So listeners, go over. The link is below to all the social medias and all that. So make sure you go over, subscribe, follow, and if YouTube wise, go over and check out the content, some of the crazy wacky stuff that Cal's putting up. If you enjoyed, please do like, comment, subscribe, and most definitely share.